Indiana Fever have made it official. That's right. It's official now. They have hired Stephanie White to coach the Indiana Fever. And rightfully so, it was a move that the Indiana Fever had already been putting in place. And the whole thing was just to get the dysfunctional family back to being functional again. So Stephanie White from the Connecticut Sun's going to lead the Indiana Fever. Now, Stephanie White, it was interesting, it was mentioned she was returning or not returning to the Connecticut Sun. And when I kind of looked at that and I said to myself, well, there's a lot of things going on with the Connecticut Sun. And I figured Stephanie White wanted out of Connecticut, right? So what did she say? You know what? She's been there a couple years, 55 and 25. I mean, we can't dispute the fact that she won ball games, right? In the NBA, because that is what she did with the Connecticut Sun. But it got so out of control, so dysfunctional that, when you looked at it, you look at Stephanie White, she basically said, look, here's the deal. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of the Connecticut Sun because one, I have concerns for my family, and two, it's going to be damaging to my career. So she went ahead and said, no, enough is enough. And rightfully so. And you got to look at how the Indiana Fever did it. You know, it's not like the rest of the WNBA teams. This is why this is the flagship of the WNBA. The fact that they fired Christie Sides and made an announcement, okay, what in less than a week of who's the coach going to be. Here's the damaging part that other teams are lingering on because you're continuing the dysfunction. The Indiana Fever said, "Hey, enough's enough. We're gonna straighten this thing out." And you gotta look at it and say, well, when a coach, okay, chooses to leave, okay, a WNBA organization that is being dysfunctional, right? So you got Carrington, you got Smith, you got Bonner who comes out and says, hey, the great player, CaitlinClark's the best great player. All of this brings home to her returning back to Indiana, right? And is she a basketball junkie? Yes. Okay, you're talking about the Gatorade Player of the Year in Indiana. So it's a great career move. Now the game becomes because you know what, Christie Sides, I can actually commend you on one thing that Christie Sides did do, right? Because Christie Sides made a comment. I'm not fond of it, but she elected to do that anyway. For whatever reason, she chose to do it. She said, I left the Indiana better than what you found it. And rightfully so by today because the Indiana Fever have hired Stephanie White, which means they have gotten better since you have left Christie Side. So sometimes you got to be cautious what you say because the other organizations in the WNBA should really take heed to that and ask, okay, would I want somebody representing my organization who's going to come out and going to say negative things in a negative light, which don't grow the game, right? So here's what we got. This is a good one, folks. This is like an ABC. You want to talk about the United States military, how we're going to do it. All right. So you got Stephanie White and you got the Indiana new front office. So here's go. You got Kelly's going to be the president. Done. Kelly chooses Amber Cox, chief operating officer, general manager, right? Chief operations. You got an all-star game you got to do. And when you look at Amber Cox, the GM, Amber Cox, her range stretches beyond just the players. I mean, she's into revolutionizing cities. And what you got here is an individual that can transform Indiana to host the WNBA All-Star game, right? So you've got everything lined up. And you look at this, and here's where I want to go with this because I had a comment that it really got me where people saying, well, Mike, what are you talking about? The NFL. And again, folks, this is the Money Mike Syndicated Radio podcast. We do it under the brand of Money Mike because our main goal and purpose is we look at corporate enterprise business, sports, franchise models, business models. How do they do business? How do they generate revenue? And how do they take an organization, okay, from being the last in the organization to winning a WNBA championship? And what are the protocols that are going to be in place? And then sometimes when you follow the money, okay, of the business model, you're going to find out there's a whole lot more going on, okay, than just the players playing basketball on the court. So they got a new front office. Stephanie White's going to lead it as a coach. Okay, you got Kelly's coming in from the NBA, bringing the NBA mentality back to the WNBA. Okay, she's going to sit there at the helm, right? So then you got Amber, who's worked with multiple sports franchises, diversity in her talent level that can scale the Indiana Fever to the highest grossing WNBA franchise in the history of the WNBA. So you move that along, and what do? You get the number one draft pick, which is CaitlinClark, right? So you've got the corporate enterprise dream of the brand. I said that right when she started her senior year at Iowa. You couldn't have had a better choice, right? But it's not all about Caitlin because now the job begins, right? And you got to go out there and you got to put the three-headed monster, as I call it. They all got to fit, right? So you got Kelly, you got Amber, and you got Stephanie. So those three have got enough synergy, enough camaraderie, and they've got a player in Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark says, man, I've been knowing Stephanie for years. I'm fine. Go ahead. Let's do this, right? So they got it all back in order, and you have to look at this and say, man, this is going to be a show, okay? Because you got Caitlin Clark, you got Kelly, you got Amber, and you got Stephanie, right? So neither one of them is all going to be home cooking. This is homegrown, and this is where I'm gonna break out another story for you because the WNBA needs to do like the ABA, and I'm going to tell you this blueprint that they have put together in the Indiana Fever will work just about everywhere. However, there are going to have to be some changes in the draft to do this. The Indiana Fever got really, really lucky to pull this off. They got the marching orders and they're getting it done. Now let's get back to that NFL because one of the comments was the Kansas City Chiefs didn't really have a relationship. I don't see how the NFL is involved. Well, let me talk to you about women empowerment, and let me talk to you about taking on ownership, and let me talk about where you got the WNBA and the NBA, right? You got two different franchises, but you got women who are going up against men. Let's be honest. Let's call it what it is. Well, I'm going to talk to you about Sheila Ford-Hamp, chairwoman of the Detroit Lions, owner, the Ford family, a generation of wealth, right? Many men, even Matt Millen, Hall of Fame of the Raiders, went in. Many men went in there and tried to turn the Detroit Lions organization around, right? They couldn't do it. They failed. Draft pick after draft pick after draft pick. You know who came in? I'm going to talk to you about Sheila Hemp Ford, okay, from the tradition of the Ford family that was able to come in and create a synergetic environment and create a transitional business model that could scale the Detroit Lions. The men failed, she succeeded. The other one I'm going to talk to you about, and this is where the correlation comes. That you're talking about Lakers, Jeannie Buss, and you want to talk about the legacy of the Buss family. This is the Money Mike Syndicated Radio podcast. We are powered up by fanatics, and we believe in what's right. This country here was built off of women who had to do the work while the men were at war. The women have been working all along, and as Jeannie Buss of the LA Lakers, as to her brother, who took over the Lakers organization and it went into a disaster. This is the woman, Jeannie Buss, that turned that organization around and is building the dynasty today. So what do I mean with cross-selling of leagues? The women of the WNBA, Jeannie Buss is sitting right there. The women who are involved in the WNBA and a partnership because they're cross-selling, Sheila Hemp Ford is right there. These are game-changing women who have changed the landscape, and now the Indiana Fever have done the same. They have come in. They have hired Stephanie White as a coach. Direction, organization. Okay, there's no doubt about it. So when you do that, you got Kelly, you got Amber, you got CaitlinClark. And every time I speak, CaitlinClark is in the middle of all this because all of the corporate partners want to roll out the WNBA. So now you get involved where the NFL is the perfect partner. Now, everybody's going to say, from a corporate standpoint, how is that possible? I saw it immediately when the Indiana Pacers drafted CaitlinClark. The Indianapolis Colts welcomed and have a jersey with Clark's name on it. That's cross-selling. That's more revenue. The Kansas City Sports Commission, okay, which is the Hunt family, they have come in and they have done the same. So we're looking at what is Indiana doing, And a lot of times, folks, I give you scenarios where I'll branch out, but I'm coming back. The Indiana Fever have put a structure in place of synergy. Now, what do you got to do? You got to go pick players, right? You got to go pick the right players that are going to fit what you want to do. Now, White's already been through the turmoil, doesn't want to go back through it again. She's looking for harmony, peace, tranquility, and really enjoying the qualities of life in the game of basketball. She's earned that. So that's just what it's going to be. And with Christie Sides, that replacement was needed. It was not something we were going to hold on to because the ultimatum, or really the ultimate decision, was you needed to make it to the second round to keep a job. You didn't do it. Life moves on, right? But you get fired on October 27th. They got a coach good to go, right? So this thing is not something we're waiting on. Christie Sides, yeah, you left it better. We gave you 2 first-round picks, CaitlinClark and Boston. Okay, Iowa, okay, and South Carolina. On top of that, Alyssa Smith, which Kim Mulkey now coaches at LSU. Thank you for the comment. But when she was at Baylor. So you've had 3 number ones, right? But nobody can recognize the fact you didn't get it done. I think the new front office regime, when you put it in there and you got synergy amongst these women, they're going to be powerful figures in the WNBA. Now, this business model, will it work that they're doing in other places? Yes, because I'm going to cover that because they need to adjust the draft because every NBA, or excuse me, WNBA team can enjoy the same success. You just have to adjust the draft order and within the business model because Indiana is going to explode. The revenue in Indiana with Amber Cox, that's what she does. That's what she's great at. How to bring diversification, inclusiveness, bring it all together and put it under the corporate brand to succeed. That's what the Indiana Fever are doing for a model of excellence, executing flawlessly in the corporate world of enterprise women's basketball. So this is a big step, but it's time. And they've got a flagship model in place. That's the Indiana Fever. And folks, I'll tell you, there's nobody does it better. You talk about the Ford family, you talk about a legacy of success, and you talk about women empowerment when you can go in there and outdo the men who have tried and failed. Here's my point exactly. When the Detroit Lions, and I only say when because they are going to win a Super Bowl, pick the coach Dan Campbell. Nothing but blue collar coaches, hard work, synergy, excitement, and the fans love it. Eminem, Kid Rock, they've been waiting on this. They had Barry Sanders, but guess what? Sheila Hemp Ford did what no one else could do. And you talk about a scholar, you talk about a first class individual. No doubt about it. You want to take it one step further, Jeannie Buss of the Lakers, and you talk about the legacy, the business model of Jerry Buss and how he interacted in multiple sports divisions and had his children able to grow up in the business. And guess who was the chosen one when it was all said and done? It wasn't the brothers, it was Jeannie Buss, the LA Lakers, Magic Johnson. That's who she grew up with. And guess what? They're both succeeding in business. So now you've got something where you've got the 4-headed monster are now at the Indiana Fever. We're talking CaitlinClark, Kelly, Amber, and now Stephanie White. The chapter of the Indiana Fever and Christie Sides is closed, and now we'll open the chapter of Stephanie White, the future WNBA championship head coach of the Indiana Fever. All things are possible. This is the Money Mike Syndicated Radio podcast. We're powered up by Fanatics. We got across the board NBA, NFL, and also trading cards. You name it, Fanatics has it. But the bottom line is this: we'll get better and better because the WNBA is on the rise. We'll see you soon.